I'm not sure what crawled up my mother-in-law's butt, but her and I got along so well before I got pregnant. She called me her daughter, came over to see me all the time, called me randomly to just talk, told me she loves me all the time, etc. But after I got pregnant, something switched in her. She stopped calling. She never said I love you back when I said it. She only came over to see my husband, and 9 times out of 10, it was trying to get him out of the house to go with her. Barely gives me a hello goodbye in passing. She even tried staying in the labor and delivery room after she was already told no because her baby needs support, and clung to my husband's arm. Several times trying to get him to go sit on the couch with her instead of standing by me where he was. She was kicked out by nurses. Since I had my daughter 3 months ago, she has come over a good 10 to 15 times and has literally only held my kid twice. She just follows my husband around everywhere and still tries to get him to leave with her to go do chores, tasks for her, changing tires, changing oil, fixing her computer, moving around her house, etc., etc., etc. And honestly, none of that bothers me nearly as much as her comments about how my daughter looks nothing like me and looks exactly like her and my husband. For a bit of context, my husband looks nothing like his mom. He is a spitting image of his father. His mom is short, blonde, brown eyes. He is super tall, black hair, green eyes. You can't tell they are related at all. But she insists my daughter looks just like her and my husband and nothing like me. She's made these comments more times than I can count, and I just give her, yeah, okay, Becky, and leave it. But yesterday I hosted a dinner for the family and obviously invited her. She shows up with a scrapbook album with a bunch of photos of her and my husband from birth to present. She was showing / telling everyone who would listen that my daughter was basically not even mine if you go off of looks. My husband spoke up a few times with a clipped, "She actually looks just like my wife," but his mom didn't acknowledge him. But then she got to my mom, and my mom, being a no-nonsense woman, said, "Are you blind or are you just being ignorant? That girl looks just like my daughter, and nothing like you. Kinda weird to me that you are desperately pushing the narrative that the baby looks like your son, and you considering your son looks nothing like you either." No one in the house said anything, but a few of them were chuckling. My husband also didn't say anything, but he looked more like a deer in headlights than anything. My mother-in-law then left. She group texted my husband and I later on saying she will never forgive us for not defending her against my mom, making a scene and embarrassing her in front of everyone. I don't feel bad. My husband does. Am I the idiot? She has 4 kids. My husband is the youngest. He's 27. Her 2 daughters have 1 child each, both 12-year-old girls. Her other son has 5 kids. She takes her daughter's kids once a month. She has never made a conscious effort with any of her other son's kids, outside of his oldest, 9-year-old female. She doesn't act like this with her other kids at all. She acts uninterested altogether. Ages. Not sure if it's relevant. Mother-in-law is 61. My mom is 44. My husband and I are both 27. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Not the idiot. She seems like one of those weird boy moms that cling to their sons for attention their whole life. And when their sons find someone else, they get angry/defensive and try even harder to cling to them. It seems that the baby triggered that, because relationships come and go. But a child is something pretty definitive. And while in her mind, a mom might be more important than a partner, she must have realized the kid would definitely take her spot as the most important thing in his life. I'm guessing that she got annoyed that you brought into the world something that would take her presumed number 1 spot in the heart of someone who is her number 1. Comment 2. Not the idiot. You took her baby away for real now. She also wanted to continue being central to her baby's world. This particular actual baby, you guys just had put an end to that. The transition from center of the family to literally being alone on the periphery is a hard one. But it's not on you how she is not coping with it. Be kind though. There isn't a mother who raised good kids that launched into the world that won't feel that pain one day. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. I really appreciated the support and advice. I've got an update for you all, and let me tell you, it's been a chaotic few days. So, after the dinner debacle, things went from bad to worse with my mother-in-law, Becky. I thought maybe she'd cool off after a few days, but nope. She started calling my husband at all hours, crying about how she felt betrayed and how she was just trying to bond with her granddaughter. My husband, bless his heart, tried to be the peacemaker, but it was clear Becky was on a warpath. 2 days ago, Becky showed up unannounced. She had this hectic look in her eyes, and I knew we were in for a scene. She stormed past me like I was invisible and found my husband in the living room. She started going off about how she had been pushed aside ever since I got pregnant, and how she felt like she was losing her son. It was intense. My husband tried to calm her down, but she wasn't having any of it. Then, out of nowhere, she dropped a bombshell. She accused me of trying to turn her son against her, saying I was jealous of their relationship. I was floored. I mean, sure, we had our issues, but I never tried to come between them. My husband jumped to my defense, telling her she was out of line and that she needed to leave. But Becky wasn't done. She turned to me and said, "You know, I always knew you weren't right for my son. You're just a manipulative little girl trying to play house." That stung. I've always tried to be a good wife and a good mother, and hearing her say that, it just broke my heart. The confrontation ended with my husband practically pushing his mom out the door. She was yelling and crying, saying she'd never forgive us. It was a mess. After she left, my husband and I had a long talk. He admitted that he felt torn between us, but he also said he couldn't stand by and let her treat me like that. Now, let's rewind a bit to give you some context about Becky's past behavior. When my husband was growing up, Becky was always the cool mom who let things slide. She was never strict with him or his siblings, which is probably why my husband turned out to be such a laid-back guy. But it also meant that Becky never really learned how to deal with conflict or how to let her kids grow up and have their own lives. Fast forward to yesterday, and things took an even crazier turn. Becky showed up again, this time with an old photo album. She sat down and started flipping through it, pointing out pictures of my husband as a baby and how he had her eyes, her smile. It was like she was trying to rewrite history to fit her narrative that my daughter looked like her. I couldn't take it anymore. I told her that she needed to stop this obsession with who my daughter looked like and start respecting us as a family. Becky just laughed and said, "Oh honey, you really think you're part of this family?" That's when I lost it. I told her that she was no longer welcome in our home until she could treat me with respect. My husband backed me up and Becky left in a huff, but not before saying that we'd regret this and that we were making a huge mistake. It was like something out of a soap opera. Now let's not forget about my husband's siblings. They've been oddly quiet through all of this. I found out from my sister-in-law that Becky had been calling them, trying to get them on her side. But they've seen how she's been acting, and they're staying out of it. They've got their own lives and kids to worry about. So here we are, 3 days later, and the house is quiet. My husband is feeling guilty, but he's standing by me. We both know that we can't let Becky continue to treat us like this. It's not healthy for anyone, especially our daughter. Nanny's night off ruins our trip, and she laughs. Our anniversary turns to ashes as we uncover her toxic lies and start over. My wife and I had our first child last year, and it's been quite an intense few months. My wife has been on an extended maternity leave, but on top of that, we've also hired a nanny/maid to assist us with the baby, as well as keep the house in order. She stays in our guest house. To celebrate our anniversary, I planned for us to take a trip by ourselves just to reconnect and give her some proper time away from our son. She was excited about leaving, but was slightly concerned about leaving our son behind. Her mother was going to come down and babysit with the nanny. Trying to ease things, I asked the nanny if she'd be willing to come along with us on our trip and take care of the baby, stressing that this was supposed to be our couple vacation, so most of the childcare will be hers and more than usual. She jumped at the idea, so I also arranged her ticket and accommodation. To be clear, she was also paid extra for the overtime. The trip was a week long, and our arrangement was going quite well at first. My wife was relaxed, we reconnected, and our son was close by for whenever we missed him. We would take our son and give her a break either in the mornings or afternoons. On our last day, she asked if we could take the night shift, as she'd met someone who'd asked her on a date. Besides that, going against our arrangement, the point was to give us a break from the sleepless nights. I'd already paid and planned an intimate date on the beach with my wife for our last night. It became a bit of an issue, with her trying to guilt my wife and saying we were being unfair. But by the end of it, we didn't give in, and she looked after the kid. Upon returning, my wife heard her on the phone saying that she was thinking of quitting over all of this and that we were blocking her future. So here we are. Wife thinks we made a mistake. I don't disagree that it might have been assholish, but ultimately it was our arrangement and she was paid extra for it. Are we the jerks? Edit. The post has been up for 12 hours at the time of writing this, and this is the first time checking in since the first hour due to life, but I just wanted to clarify some things I've seen come up. 1. She got paid double her usual daily rate. Since she has consistent daily, we just refer to it as the daily rate, where she works 8 hours. So we paid her for 16 hours of work daily. 2. Our expectations were very clearly expressed to her, and she agreed that it wouldn't be a problem. Depending on our plans, sometimes we took mornings, and sometimes we took afternoons, but on any given day, it was one of the two. This was also pre-planned, since our trip had an itinerary. Each of these breaks averaged about 5 hours, and that excludes the spontaneous breaks whenever we missed him and prepared him for bed. Also, this assumption that my wife and I can't and don't take care of our child is silly. The nanny is there only to assist whenever my wife needs to naps, rest. My wife takes care of most of the childcare, and I step in when I get back from work. Most of her maid's work is housework. My wife is staying at home because of her traumatic birth, which had complications she's still recovering from. She fully plans on returning to work when she's fit and our child is old enough. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Have a baby. Oh, we are so tired. So let's drag the nanny with us on a vacation and work her 24 hours a day. That will get us relaxed. And also, let's listen in on her phone calls. For people who couldn't leave the baby behind, you did not spend much time with the babe. There was no reason to drag the child along. Comment 2. Depending on where you live, this trip could have violated labor law. You shouldn't have brought along the baby and nanny in the first place if you wanted it to be a couple's trip. Did you clarify expectations with her that she would be working 20+ hours per day for 7 days straight? She's your employee, not your servant. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments on my last post. It's been a chaotic couple of weeks since then, and boy do I have an update for you. So after the whole mess with our nanny wanting to go on a date during our trip, things took a turn for the worse when we got back home. Remember how I mentioned she was thinking of quitting? Well, she did, but not before causing a scene that would rival any daytime soap opera. It all started when my wife's mom, who had come down to help out, overheard the nanny bad-mouthing us to a friend on the phone. She was saying some pretty nasty stuff about how we were overbearing and how she deserved better than to be stuck with a baby on a tropical paradise. My mother-in-law, bless her heart, confronted her about it, and that's when the fireworks started. The nanny, let's call her Sarah, went off. She accused us of being selfish and not considering her personal life. She even brought up the fact that she had been with us since our son was born, helping my wife through her recovery from the traumatic birth. She said she felt like part of the family and that we should treat her as such. Now, I'll admit, Sarah had been a godsend when my wife was dealing with the aftermath of the birth. She was there when my wife couldn't even get out of bed, and I was swamped with work, but we had always been clear about professional boundaries, and we paid her well for her work. Double the rate during the trip, remember? The argument escalated, and Sarah quit on the spot, storming out of our house and leaving us in a lurch. My wife was devastated. She had formed a bond with Sarah, and the thought of finding a new nanny who could match up to her was daunting. But here's the juicy injustice. After Sarah left, we started noticing things were missing. Small items at first, like my wife's favorite scarf, a pair of cufflinks I rarely wore, and some cash from the drawer where we kept emergency money. We didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was piling up against Sarah. We decided to check the guest house where she stayed, and that's when we found the stash. Sarah had been taking things from us for who knows how long. We were shocked and felt utterly betrayed. My wife was in tears, not just over the stolen items, but over the broken trust. We confronted Sarah, and she denied everything at first. But when we showed her the stash we found, she broke down and admitted to taking the items. She said she felt entitled to a little extra because of all the hard work she did, and that we wouldn't miss those things. We were flabbergasted. How could someone we trusted, who had been with us through such a personal and challenging time, justify stealing from us? The confrontation was intense. My wife, who had always been the calm and collected one, was furious. She had defended Sarah, even after the trip incident, and now she felt like a fool. I was angry too, but more than that, I was worried about my wife. She had been through so much already, and this was just another blow. We didn't call the police, though maybe we should have. Instead, we demanded that Sarah return all the items and leave immediately. We didn't want to drag this out or cause more drama. She left, and that was the last we saw of her. Now we're left picking up the pieces. My wife's mom has extended her stay to help us out, and we're starting the search for a new nanny. It's not going to be easy, but we're trying to stay positive. The whole situation has been a lesson in trust and boundaries. We thought we were doing everything right, but it just goes to show that you never really know what's going on in someone else's head. Husband's family crashed our trip, so I cancelled day 5's surprise. They played innocent, but the silent treatment revealed their true colours. My husband and I were planning a vacation for us and our 2 kids. We will be gone for 8 days in the summer. We have saved for this trip for years and were super excited. This place is about 3 hours away from my husband's family. They invited us to spend some days with them. However, from the start, I said I wanted alone time with just the 4 of us. With the kids getting older, we don't get a lot of time with them. We don't have the money to travel often. I suggested 3 to 4 days with his family. Then we would go to the actual vacation spot. I also set the boundary that we would stay in a hotel. They all seemed to agree. Then, out of nowhere, my husband's family decided to go to our vacation spot for the full 8 days. That's when the hints began that we all get a house to rent. I said no. I love my husband's family, but it would just be too much, and I wanted time just for us. We don't need to be around each other 24/7. After that, my sister-in-law started making plans for all 8 days that included us. I put my foot down to my husband and said no. We could spend 4 days with his family, maybe 5, but I wanted just a few days just for us. We never get to go on vacation, and his family visits once or twice a year, so it's not like we don't see them. My husband says I have hurt his family's feelings. When I spoke to my sister-in-law, she said I should understand why it hurts that I won't spend the entire time with them. I asked how they would feel if they planned a trip, and we tried to change the plan. She said family does this stuff for each other. Now, I'm already dreading the trip and wonder if I'm being overly dramatic and should just give in to avoid drama. Am I the idiot? Edit. As it has already been asked, we chose this spot because it's somewhere our kids have always wanted to go. Of course, we can't give them everything they want in life, but now we can finally afford it. As I said, we never get to vacation, and I wanted to give this to them. Edit 2. We can't cancel or change dates as we put down non-refundable deposits. Edit 3. I understand that it is Reddit and people expect the craziest things to happen. I understand the concern that my husband would give them the address to the Airbnb, and they would just show up to intrude on our off days. However, knowing them, they are not the type to do this. They will respect the actual boundary, but then you will hear about it for the next 5 years. I am positive that they won't intrude on our off days. I am sure people will call me naive, but my husband and I have been married 20 years. I know his family. This is how they are. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1, not the idiot. It's always an move to hijack someone else's vacation and then change all the plans around. If you wanted to spend the whole time with them, you would have either A, planned your vacation around visiting them, where they live would be the destination, or B, invited them to join you from the start. This is no different than someone who invites themselves to a party, etc. It's just plain rude and not what family does. Comment 2. When I spoke to my sister-in-law, she said I should understand why it hurts. I won't spend the entire time with them. Huh? Because you want to spend time with your own family. Because sister-in-law and her family invited themselves on your vacation. You've graciously offered to spend a few days with this side of the family. But this is your trip. You need boundaries and not to be manipulated into feeling sister-in-law's pain, not the idiot. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, remember my post about the family vacation drama? Well, buckle up, because the past 3 months have been a rough ride, and I've got an update for you all. So, after my last post, things got even more intense. My husband and I had a huge argument about the trip. He felt torn between me and his family, and I was adamant about having our alone time. It was a mess. We've been married for 20 years, and I thought we could handle anything, but this was testing us. In the midst of all this, my sister-in-law, who's always been the planner of the family, kept sending itineraries for the 8 days. She had everything mapped out, from group breakfasts to late-night campfires. It was clear she wasn't getting the message. Then one night, my husband came to me with a compromise that actually seemed workable. He suggested we spend the first 4 days with his family as planned, but we'd stay in a separate hotel nearby. This way, we could join in on some activities, but also have our escape. For the last 4 days, we'd go to our vacation spot alone, as a family. The catch? We'd have to join his family for a big farewell dinner on the 4th night. I was hesitant at first, but I could see he was trying. Plus, the kids were excited about the idea of a big family dinner, so I agreed. The first part of the vacation was a lot. His family is loud and always on the go, but having our own hotel room was a lifesaver. We could retreat when needed, and the kids actually enjoyed spending time with their cousins. Then came the farewell dinner. It was at this fancy restaurant, and everyone was in high spirits. But halfway through, my brother-in-law, who's known for his lack of filter, blurted out that they'd booked a surprise activity for us all on the 5th day. My heart sank. I looked at my husband, and he was just as shocked. I excused myself and went outside for some air. My husband followed, and we had a quiet, intense conversation. He promised he didn't know about this, and agreed we'd stick to our plan. We went back in, and he calmly explained to his family that while we appreciated the gesture, we needed to stick to our original plan. Surprisingly, they took it well. Or so we thought. The next day, as we were packing up to leave for our solo part of the trip, my sister-in-law showed up at our hotel. She was on the verge of tears, saying how they just wanted to make memories with us. I felt a pang of guilt, but I remembered all the times we'd given in to their plans. I took a deep breath and told her we loved them, but we needed this time for our family. She didn't say much and left. It was awkward, but I felt like we'd finally set a boundary. The rest of the vacation was amazing. Just the 4 of us, exploring and making memories. The kids said it was the best trip ever, and my husband and I reconnected in a way we hadn't in years. But when we got back, the fallout was waiting for us. His family was hurt, and it was clear at the next family gathering. There were some passive-aggressive comments, and my mother-in-law gave me the cold shoulder. It's been a few weeks since then, and things are slowly getting better. My husband has been my rock, standing by our decision. We've had a couple of family dinners since, and while there's still some tension, I'm hopeful it'll pass. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.